This is how fierce the winds can get in Uruguay. Enough to rip its flag to pieces, enough to prevent you from getting into your car, and enough to supply the country's energy needs, along with hydropower, biomass, and solar. Uruguay now runs on 98% renewables and has found a way to capitalize its green energy. A sharp turnaround for a small Latin American country that was reliant on gas and oil exports not too long ago. But if Uruguay is a leader in the clean energy transition, why is oil exploration happening off its coast? And can it be a model for other nations? Before we answer that, let's see how Uruguay went 98% renewable in just a decade. Uruguay is now generating so much renewable energy, it often has more than it needs, providing it with a new revenue stream. Last year, Uruguay's state-owned power company, UTE, exported more than 2 gigawatt-hours of surplus energy, generating nearly 90 million euro in revenue. Much of that surplus is exported to two of Uruguay's neighbors, Brazil and Argentina, and farmers like Santiago Revello are able to cash in too by leasing their land to the state to build and operate wind farms.
Este campo tiene un arraigo muy fuerte, tanto familiar, porque es de la época de mis abuelos, y es nuestro sostén económico para mi familia, mis hermanas y mi hija y eso y nosotros. Y la parte eólica lo que vino es a complementar la parte económica, digamos, como una entrada fija.
Payments provide farmers with a stable income stream and allow them to continue to cultivate land. And wind farms on Santiago's land, they need to be built, maintained, and serviced, which is why Uruguay's former energy minister claims the transition created over 50,000 jobs too. For Uruguay, depending on renewable energy is kind of like going back to its roots. For many decades, the small country of 3 million people relied primarily on this, hydropower. The small country's energy needs were being met until the rivers supplying the hydropower plants met their match, drought, first in 1988, then in 1999. Families like the Revellos lost crops and faced financial strain.
Aquí atravesamos por lo menos dos o tres sequías fuertes que marcan mucho. No había tantos recursos como hoy en día de poder comprar fardos o raciones. Era muy complicado conseguir. Las raciones eran muy caras, tan caras que a veces la gente hasta dejaba morir los animales porque no podía bancarlo.
Officials looked for alternative energy sources and, like much of the world, bought up oil and gas. By 2005, oil accounted for 55% of Uruguay's total energy supply. Oil prices kept rising. Many farming families found themselves on thin financial ice, the Revellos included, who began considering selling their land.
La mayoría de estos predios, el mayor problema que tienen es que no tenemos una entrada fija mensual, pero sí tenemos costos mensuales, como todos. Entonces, la sequía lo que hace es atrasar mucho los ingresos, porque perdés capital y perdés ingreso pronto. Entonces, ahí empezamos a pensar que no solo con esto se podía, porque la lana bajando, la ganadería tenía un tope por suelos, entonces habría que inventar algo, porque si no, las familias se iban agrandando, alguna cosa tenía que surgir. Y ahí es que surgió la idea de este parque eólico.
Uruguay even bought insurance from the World Bank, protecting it from weather and fluctuating oil prices. But this only made Uruguay more reliant on external resources. Something had to be done. One person had an idea.
I had all the no's. I mean, everybody was saying this is impossible. This is what everybody was repeating all over the world.
But this guy, Ramón Méndez Galain, doesn't take no for an answer. He was Uruguay's former national energy director, and he transformed his country from a fossil fuel-dependent nation to one that runs almost entirely on renewable energy.
This means that all political parties represented in parliament voted for this transition. They agreed that this was the best, that going to renewables was the best for our own interest, for our own national interest, for the people in Uruguay.
Turns out, this political solidarity in the name of national interest was good for business.
having a long-term strategy backed by the entire Uruguayan political system. This brings confidence, this brings continuity in the efforts, and this is the best for all stakeholders, private, for people, for consumers, for everybody.
Investors provided funding through public-private partnerships. Here's how Méndez Galain explains it to the Kleinman Center for Energy Policy.
We made bidding processes to see which are the best private investors that want to invest in generation in Uruguay. But after the electricity is generated, it goes to the public grid.
Uruguay state utility companies sought long-term, 20-year bids from investors instead of short-term ones as a way to ensure that prices would remain stable over the course of the contract.
We find two kind of people that say no, because I don't know what it is. I have something new. I don't want to risk my land for that. And other people which really admire them, that say, well, something new, let's analyze that. Why not?
Fernando Scheich facilitated one of the earliest bids.
Talking about green energy, or in that case was just wind energy, in a place where there were absolutely no wind turbines installed at that moment, and where the only thing that you can find in the fields are cows or animals, and talking about infrastructures that have 100 meters height, that was really interesting.
Santiago Rebello was one of the first farmers to jump into an agreement.
A partir del 2014, que es la fecha que se inauguró el parque, lo que sí empezó a cambiar en la parte nuestra acá, como núcleo familiar, es que podríamos llegar a tener un ingreso, digamos, mensual que nos servía para cubrir más o menos los costos.
Finally, Uruguay created a regulatory environment that not only incentivized development of wind and solar farms, but also spurred initiatives into additional alternatives like green hydrogen and biofuel. Though Uruguay runs renewable, it isn't completely washing its hands of fossil fuels. Turns out it's interested in drilling for it too, indirectly at least. When oil and gas fields were found off Namibia's coast in 2022, Uruguay got curious. Its coast is geologically similar to Namibia's, and it started to think that maybe it had oil and gas too. Since then, Uruguay's state-owned energy company, ANCAP, has given out permits to explore for oil and gas in their territorial waters. The recipients? Shell, Chevron, the APA Corporation, the Isle of Man's CEG, and Argentina's YPF. So far, investment for oil exploration totals more than €135 million. But the irony of encouraging oil and gas drilling while being one of the handful of countries striving to go 100% green isn't lost on ANCAP. It states, ANCAP continues to explore for oil and natural gas while simultaneously leading the development of sustainable fuels. How? By benefiting from the revenues generated by these resources to invest in renewable energy, biofuels, and green hydrogen projects, further driving the energy transition. Exploratory drilling is scheduled to start in 2026 and is expected to last at least 4 years. But Uruguay isn't the only country that runs on renewables at home while taking part in the global oil and gas industry. Norway is the largest producer of oil and natural gas in Western Europe. And last year, petroleum was one of Brazil's top exports. And remember Uruguay's energy mix last year? 26% of it came from biomass, a fuel that is produced by burning organic waste. Which is why one expert ranked Uruguay 37th in clean energy in 2023.
The main reason we do not include it is because of the air pollution from burning biomass for electricity, and that air pollution causes health problems, mortality, morbidity.
Mark Jacobson is a professor of civil and environmental engineering at Stanford University. He published the ranking of cleanest countries.
So we look at only clean renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, geothermal, hydroelectric, which do not involve combustion and do not involve air pollution during their operation at all.
Uruguay's transition makes it impressive, but it's not alone. It's one of the handful of countries that now runs almost entirely on renewable energy. In 2023, these countries generated at least 98% of their power grid with wind, solar, and hydropower. You may be noticing they all have one thing in common. They're all pretty small in size. It's often the reason why people say an energy transition like Uruguay's can be done. But Uruguay has different energy needs from countries like Germany, which still imports coal to produce enough energy for its steel industry. But Uruguay also has a lot less resources than Germany. In 2008, before it underwent its energy transition, Uruguay's GDP was just under 27 million euro. Germany's at the time was 3.2 trillion euro.
When people are saying, oh, but you did it because it's a small country. I mean, believe me, being a small country in global south, everything is much, much, much more difficult. It's exactly the opposite. We have less financial capacities. We have less number of universities. We are only 3 million people. So imagine the amount of capacity that we can have.
It may not have local manufacturing, but it has plenty of the other stuff that's needed. Wind. Last year, wind power made up 28% of Uruguay's power grid, while hydropower contributed to 42%. Sun made up 3%. The rest was biogas. In these cases, it seems the key word here is transition. Transitioning to renewable energy requires funding, much of which is coming from fossil fuels right now.
There is no other way to solve global warming, air pollution, and energy security simultaneously, aside from electrifying all energy and providing that electricity from clean renewable sources. People can propose all sorts of gimmicks such as carbon capture, direct air capture, blue hydrogen, biomass, electrofuels, small and large nuclear reactors, but those just are useless for helping solve these problems. And there's only one solution, that's electrification and providing the electricity from clean renewable sources such as wind, solar, geothermal, and hydroelectric power.
What do you think about exploring for oil and gas as a way to generate climate transition funding? And can countries copy Uruguay's playbook? The truth is, Uruguay had some advantages: a small population, abundant wind and hydropower, and rare political consensus. Larger countries with higher demand face tougher challenges.
I'm not expecting Germany to be 99% using just wind and solar. No, of course not. But if we don't change the way we plan, the way we operate the system, the way we define the design the market, for sure, we will never make the transition. We are in collision course with net zero. We are in collision course with net zero.
But despite fewer resources, Uruguay proved there's power in a common goal and created a model for public-private partnerships that benefited investors, the state, and the local economy. How far along the energy transition is your country? Let us know in the comments. And thanks for watching Transforming Business.